of some concern, and if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to the Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, PO Box 195 Charlestown in Nevis. So give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and 01700. And by the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and when you get on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Also, you can follow our video stream of this program on our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio, on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio. Thank you all again. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. Tonight, the Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to my colleagues around the table. Let me say good evening to those who are listening and viewing this edition of Let's Talk. Webbo, I want to thank you for the invitation tonight, and I'm certainly looking forward to tonight's discussion. Webbo, I want to offer some congratulations from the outset. Over the last few weeks, we have been having a number of primary school graduations, and I've had the privilege of attending a few, and I want to congratulate all of the graduates, Webbo, these young people, the parents, the teachers. And I want to say, Webbo, an extra special congratulations to these young people and the teachers, because I believe that we all would recall that over the past few years they have had to pivot as it relates to the COVID global pandemic, and went online with their learning platform, and the kind of achievement that I've seen and heard that they have been able to accomplish is certainly remarkable. So I want to congratulate them. Webbo, I also want to congratulate all of those persons who were recently honored, and two in particular, well, throughout the Federation here in St. Kitts and Nevis, but two in particular, the Honorable Marjorie Morton and Pastor Eric Maynard. I believe two of my favorite folks. Both were made MBEs, and I really, really want to congratulate them. I believe that their example that they have set have been something for us to really emulate, and I want to congratulate them. Webbo, we have had also these cricket tournaments and the primary school tournaments, and the Charlestown Primary School would have been able to be successful at the Republic Bank 5-a-side cricket championship. But also we have had the Winako Mountain Primary School championships, where the VOJN school would have attained or became victorious in that competition, with Charlestown Primary School and the St. Thomas's Primary School coming second and third respectively. So again, in the midst of the graduation and the pomp and celebration, I believe that our young people have displayed that they can deal with their education along with the sports. So I also want to congratulate them. I also want to use this opportunity to offer some condolences. We have a number of families throughout the Federation who are in mourning tonight, and I want to take this opportunity to offer my sincere condolences to all those families who are in mourning. One who comes readily to mind is the Wilkinson family there in Stony Grove, in the passing of Reuben Wilkinson. But I believe that, and also the Powell family there in Craddock Road, I believe that while we reflect on these folks who would have been good example in our community and the contribution that they would have made, I want us never to forget that they would have been on this world stage, and they would have made their contribution. They would have done their part, and they would have left a legacy for many of us to follow. So I want to say, Webbo, my condolences to all those families who are in mourning, and I hope that they would remember their loved one with fond memories. So Webbo, thanks for the invitation, and I am certainly looking forward to tonight's discussion.
Conrad Naya Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a pleasant good evening to your hard-working staff here at Von Radio, the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean. To my colleagues around the table, pleasant good evening, and to all my friends in tune to the program, near and far, in the international circle, my friend in Toronto and Connecticut, Mr. Liebert. And Webbo, once again, I'm happy to be here discussing the issues that affect the people, and of course to highlight those who are worthy to be highlighted, as Mr. Braniff paid tribute to Mrs. Margie Morton and Mr. Eric Maynard. Eric Maynard, two personalities well known in our society, and I tip my hat to them for the contribution they have made. And Webbo, as you know, I'm fond of this conversation. I found to extend the conversation that people always tend to provoke me into on the street, and I would encourage them to call into the program. It's a democracy, and yes, we have an expectation that you shouldn't be spited because you call in. And of course, it's that type of atmosphere we should encourage in order for us to have, good decisions going forward as we tread this very careful journey to nation building. Webbo, thank you once again for having me.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts, and more particularly the gracious people of Nevis, and those who listen and view us on the World Wide Web and on YouTube, as the case might be. Well, this evening, of course, I have to follow through in terms of offering my condolences to those who have gone to the great beyond, including my schoolmate, classmate, Blackfelt. And I saw him in the past, and if I am not exaggerating, he never had one gray hair. But I was surprised when I heard of his passing. Anyhow, God bless his soul. And to the Honorable Marjorie Morton, who gave me an opportunity to be in the House of Assembly, but I declined. I declined. At the same time, I think, in my view, more pressing matters to attend, and as a result, although it was really a tip in the right direction, I could not have picked up that assignment simply because of more pressing matters, and I have not regretted it. Because let me tell you, it is quite turbulent out here, and if you don't keep your eye on the ball, which I know that assignment as a parliamentarian or a seat in the House of Assembly would have taken my eye off the ball, off of my ball, and as a result, my ball is still a little buoyant in the air. So again, congratulations, and to the pastor Eric Maynard, I say congratulations to him for attaining the status of MBE. Well, they have made their contributions, and as a result, they are worthy of these accolades. However, we'll move on and attempt to bring to the fore this thing regarding NHLDC being the owner of the houses that they would have sold to the people, and it was good that the Honorable Mark Brantley brought it onto his program and mentioned that if people don't be vigilant, they might think they own a house, but at the same time the house is not in their name. And let me add my voice to his to make the clarion call to advise people to go to the bank, get the bank to pick up the tab and give you a mortgage, and as a result you could now say that you have completed the journey with regard to having your name on a document which states clearly you are the owner of that property. I would say that it becomes a little legally challenging if you don't take that step. So my clarion call is to advise those who are paying a little less, go to the bank, get a loan, and get your papers in order. Now, I have done quite a number of valuations, and some of which the bank sent me. I went, but NLDC stated they cannot issue things or give me information until the bank approves the loan. It was a vicious cycle in the past, and I hope that they would have straightened it out by now. So if you are a valuator and you are sent to do the valuation on a property to NHLDC, and the architect who has not prepared the plans yet and doesn't give you the information that the bank wants, you can't get the mortgage, because the bank has to get information from the valuator, from the appraiser, as to what the property is valued at, and for them to issue a mortgage. So it's a catch-22, and you have to be very, very careful regarding that journey, approaching the bank, and the bank doesn't have anything to work with. The bank sends you to the NHLDC to acquire the information for them to approve the loan, and the NHLDC sends you back to the bank to tell the bank, I can't give you anything until you approve the loan. However, a good valuator, a good appraiser, figures out as to how to deliver.
Folks who are in that, there may be still one or two who have not been able to complete that process. What the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation is now doing is they would give the applicant for those homes an offer letter. That offer letter would contain the cost of the house, the land, to build the house, and so on. And then they would approach the financial institutions. It is a matter between the applicant and the financial institution to sort out the mortgage arrangement. Once that mortgage arrangement is completed, then that information would be communicated with the Nevis Housing and Land, and then they would start to construct the home. So no home is being constructed until, quote unquote, a mortgage is approved and that is communicated to the Nevis Housing and Land. But the important thing, Mr. Stanley and gentlemen and listeners, once that mortgage is approved, that mortgage is in the name of the applicant. So from the outset, from day one, that person can say, look, I am the owner of this property that is under construction. And I feel that that has been the difference. We feel that if someone is going to take up $250,000, $300,000, they should have a piece of paper in their hand to say that, look, I have invested my hard-earned efforts, my hard-earned monies, and I have the documentation to show for it. And I feel that many persons have been successful in that route. And I certainly want to encourage our people to continue to try and own a piece of the rock. It is yours. Once you apply yourselves, once you are prepared to work and ensure that you meet the commitment that you have with the financial institution, you would be in a much better position.
Well, I would say that is visionary, and as a result, it tells me that you guys, you honorable men and women, are thinking outside the box, and as a result, you are bringing to the fore a procedure which obviously gives applicants the opportunity to feel as though they are the owner once the bank approves that mortgage and they get the money is paid to the corporation, and therefore they have a monthly payment, whether it is for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. You have a bankable document which could be leveraged in so many areas, because after you've invested X number of dollars in a home and time has passed, you've got sweat equity. You've got equity in that property, and as a result, you can leverage that equity to do other things, so many other things. And money is not cheap, really, as the case might be. And if you are able to understand the numbers, you could do so many things by accessing that equity in that property over a period of time, which I do not believe could have been done which when the NHLDC was holding the mortgage, holding the applicant hostage. So
could not have been done.
Why was it not seen? That wasn't rocket science. But it seems to have been a blindside for the other administration. Maybe they saw some political advantage, I can't see it, in not allowing the people to acquire their homes through the bank financing system. So again, it was forward thinking and foresight.
Yeah, but not rocket science.
Not rocket science.
Not rocket science.
Because it looks to me like, for some reason, if what Mr. Brand said was happening, I still can't understand it in a sense that Mr. Brand said they were paying rent.
Right.
But that is what it works out to, literally, because you don't have anything to show that you own the property.
Well, that's quite illegal as far as I check. I mean, when it comes to real estate, you know, everything's got to be in writing for it to have any legal standing. And of course, Mr. Stanley said he don't know why this was happening. You're sure you don't know, Mr. Stanley?
It has to be.
It's the nature of the political game we play sometimes here on Island. It's a way of pinpointing. It's a way of discriminating. It's a way of helping those who probably cannot meet the threshold, or probably not qualify for a mortgage, but just on the basis of casual friendship and political support, they were offered homes, or they can be offered homes. So when you say you don't know why, I mean, to me the reasons are very obvious. It's a casual way of doing very serious business. And I can't imagine that people would be paying for 20 years and without the knowledge that after paying what the house costs, they would not have been furnished with the title. I am not sure if that would have been the case, because that would have been, I mean, that cannot be the act of a modern government, of a real government. It's extortion, in a sense. And so I'm sitting here and I'm very much left confused as to what was the previous administration intention, having that approach, if it was like that. And I know Cherry Garden was built for various reasons other than to accommodate individuals in a nice place to live. And I suppose the rush in which Cherry Garden was built, they probably had a lot of undue arrangement that never really, could not have gotten anyway. It may seem good for the government over the short term, but the people are left, and I can't sit here and think in my right mind that that was the intention of the previous administration, that people would pay for 20 years without looking forward to have that paper, that title. But anyway, to me, it was not rocket science that the CCM correct the situation and did what was right and reasonable. And so that's what is happening now, which is, it's very good. It seems to me like your problem has been cleared up to Mr. Stanley, because as Mr. Brand said, now you can get a plan and figure it out in terms of making your evaluation, so the bank can go forward and process the mortgage. But let me say, we're using the word quite casually. A mortgage is not an easy thing, you know. A mortgage is not an easy thing to pay off in this country. And a lot of people are afraid of mortgage, or mortgages. I haven't heard much about the foreign builders coming to think it's anymore. But I say that because I believe government in themselves are still trying to really make affordable home for the people, really, because one would argue a home that costs $400,000 and almost $2,000 plus a month for the mortgage. It's not quite affordable. It's quite a stretch and a reach for some, really. But I think the administration and the Nevis Housing and Land Corporation is doing a good job. It's doing a good job, and I think they have made it very clear and as easy as it can be, I suppose, because it's the bank money, and the bank run the risk. And so, and I've seen, you know, areas where the island administration have decided to put these homes, and they're filling up fast, man. You know, up by the top of Quaddock Road, beautiful homes, and almost as soon as one's come, another one is coming up. And so there's this demand, and people are indulged with the bank, and they have been successful. But I must say that we are still looking for more affordable homes. And I know government would like to give more affordable homes, more, and you know, at a rate that is more manageable in terms of monthly payments. But at the same time, we got to keep the scale in the balance, because I am still waiting to hear what would be going on with the Trinidad company coming into St. Kitts to build those homes, because I was happy to hear that with some, what could I say, some concerns, but I thought people want homes, and good homes too, and if they can get them at a better rate, less costly, it will be a good thing. It would be a good thing, because they can, you know, spend that extra money to further develop themselves, as the minister and Mr. Stanley said earlier. They can use that paper to do most and many things, but they must be reminded that they ain't no paper until the mortgage is paid. And the idea of equity here on Ireland, and Mr. Stanley, you would know more about that, it's not alive for some reason. It's not recognized in the context of how the equity is recognized in say England, in your home, you know, the increase in price and what you can do with the increase in price. And so that have left our industry here a little behind, because it's one thing have not happened in Nevis. It's the great exchange of the great investment in real estate in terms of building properties and the concept of flipping properties. And so Mr. Stanley would know more about that, but I'm not sure it's happening here in a way that it happens in other places, you know, because people always cry out about how expensive it is to build here. I know some white folks have tried that, and they can't get a property sell easily because it's just expensive to build here. Mr. Stanley?
Well, listen, you have to understand the dynamics. And if a person has a limited income, you don't hang that higher than you can reach. And if you are able to pick up a one-room building with a bathroom and a kitchen, that is what your lifting power can afford. But if you're attempting to pick up something that is beyond your financial capability, then you're going to wind up in problems. For me, I have a very novel approach. I spend what I have in my pocket. That's how I build. When it's over, when it's complete, when it's finished, where it drops, it stops. And I can go to sleep simply because I owe no one. That is insurance that I bought for myself, whereas I spend what I can afford to spend, and again, where it drops, it stops. I push hard, but houses are not that expensive, you know. Let me tell you.
It's expensive then.
The workman does not give you.
Everything is just expensive. I wonder if they talk to each other and decide to just let's just up all these rates.
The workman does not give you honest day's work for an honest day's pay, because there are fellows who come and they put out just 25% of their output, productive capacity, and as a result,
yeah, we have that issue.
You are paying 3 times, 4 times,
Look,
simply because the workman, his output. There was a fellow who I employed to do my house where I am, and when I saw what he did, I gave him $250 that first week, and he warned me he may not come back simply because those fellows who were there are not putting out, and they are attempting to make him lazy. And therefore, he came back the next week, but he complained that they just weren't putting out what they're supposed to put out. A workman can, with a helper, should be able to lay 400 blocks per day.
6-inch.
6-inch or 8-inch. It doesn't make any difference.
No.
Well, what I'm saying to you is, based on what I understood, because I saw it, and he put down not only here, but in the jurisdiction where I lived before, 400 blocks per day. Straight wall, I mean, when you got corners, that's a different dynamic. But the cost of labor with reference to output, they're tied together. And if for some reason a fellow recognizes that you got a couple extra dollars, he's going to stay there in the job and bleed you. And if you don't watch out, he bleeds you. So what I'm saying to you is that you take on the responsibility of building your own home, but you have to keep an eye on those people who came not to help you, but to help themselves, and to see how long they could stay in your pocket. And it does happen. Now,
You put a guy 250. Whatever was that in the 80s?
No. Well, listen, that house was built in the 90s, and I'm saying to you,
You know the rate today is 250 a day.
well, it makes no difference.
Okay.
It makes no difference. Once the person is going to give you an honest day's work,
I mean, it makes no difference. If you're paying 250 a week and 250 a day, then that don't make no difference.
well, what I'm trying to say, you got inflation, and you can't expect to pay in 2023 the rate you paid in
Okay.
1990. But if you were to look at the dynamics of money, you could get a fellow who would increase his output. If he comes to give you an honest day's work, for an honest day's pay, you will get. But the capturing cost or the capturing value is upon the completion of the project. So with
Yeah.
the value added as the property appreciates, you recapture your cost. But it's a game. You have to understand the dynamics, and as a result, you have to find the right approach. And it doesn't happen only in the construction industry. There's a fellow who comes and he does a little pulling out a bush and so on. And one day I realized that he was supposed to have dug out a couple of acacia trees, a couple of wild tamarind, and he didn't do it. So I calculated, I said, okay, let me give him an extra and send him back to get it done. He went and he did it. But he attempted to use the same trick to underproduction or underproduce to get more. But at the same time, you have to be able to be wise, economize, and ultimately make a determination as to where you are in this game of labor cost, the time period. So where we are, even though we're in 2023, you can still get a house built within a certain monetary position, monetary plateau, and come out.
Yeah, the thing is, Mr. Stanley, you're hands-on and you micromanage things, and you probably is that type of person who starts from a position of. What I'm saying for the average individual, especially the ladies who tend to fear the idea of construction, I've met a few of them.
Quite so.
Because I mean, I've met not just ladies, but people cry out in terms of the cost of workmanship. And again, it comes down to production. Yes, we are falling seriously short of that in terms of honest day pay. And I think with the influx of other people coming into the island, we've been taught a good lesson. But still, what I realize, the other folks come in and realize what's happening. And a couple of weeks after, they write up there with the press too. you know, I find it's escalating, and I don't know how and who I may ask to look at it in a serious way, but it looks to me like everybody's holding one head just to be seriously expensive to the poor owners. Then, man,
gentlemen, listen, I have had the experience of being around construction, and I remember some years ago a gentleman bought a property and he wanted to start a business, and he spoke to a particular contractor. The contractor said to him there was an existing building and he wanted to go upstairs and put on a roof, concrete roof. The contractor said to him that he would take about 4 months, between 4 to 5 months, to run up the blocks, and put on the decking and cast the roof and so on. We had on that particular project some sensitive times, because it was coming up to Christmas and the gentleman wanted to open his business for Christmas. I said to the owner, here's what we are going to do. We had a few thousand blocks to put up. We went to the contractor and we said to the contractor, how much are you going to charge to put up one of these blocks?
Okay, before we do all that, good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening, Mr. Herbert. Good evening, Mr. Herbert.
Good evening.
Yes, and how are you?
I am well, and you?
I'm doing all right, by God's help. Thank you. I would like to speak to Mr. Brand, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Brand. How are you?
I am giving thanks.
Okay. I called because I'm not pleased. I called you more than once at your office, and the last time when I called you, you made a promise. I'm calling from Victoria Road.
Yes, I know the voice.
So you know who
Yes,
who is
yes,
talking
yes,
to you,
yes.
right? You made a promise, and it was not fulfilled.
So it wasn't done?
No.
Okay.
And I called Public Works since that. No one turned up. Now, rain fell this afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
and more stuff come down. It's right in my walkway. I have a drain in front of my yard that when the water comes down, that it could go out. That same stuff that comes down in my yard goes into the drain and it fill it up, so the water cannot run out as it should. Now, if anyone comes to me, they cannot walk down my walkway. And if I'm leaving my veranda right now to go out, I have to be careful where I step out, because I would fall. You hearing me?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
hearing you,
caller,
I'm hearing you.
And
well, work with me.
okay, Mr. Herbert.
Work with me.
Let's
Hello,
take-
hello, just work with me. I think, Mr. Brand, you said you know the lady,
I know the lady.
you know the complaint,
Yes.
and you were addressing it before. You thought it was done,
I know that some attention was given and a few other things needed to be done.
so you will follow up on it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, caller.
Hold on, Mr. Herbert, please. Let me.
Now see what happens,
Yeah,
right?
let me finish. man.
Listen, work with me, right?
Mr. Herbert,
Listen to me.
we have to work with one another, you know.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, to get all the details of every single thing, right? He got it, right? He promises he's going to address it,
I hear that.
right? And so,
I just
wh-
want to finish that off with one thing, right? So please, Mr. Herbert, with no disrespect, grant me the favor. Now, I learned in school by teacher Jem Kelly, before you make a promise, consider its importance, and when made, engrave it upon your heart. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a good night, and I pray and hope that somebody will come tomorrow and take up the stuff that is in the yard and what is in the road across from me. Have a good night. Thank you.
okay, thank you. You as well. Mr. Brand.
Thanks, Webbo, and I want to thank the caller for that. This is a matter that she have raised with me before. We have done some stuff there, and obviously there are a few other things that we need to do. But I just want to thank the caller for raising that matter again with that call tonight. Webbo, I was saying earlier of a particular construction project that a particular businessman wanted to get completed by a certain time, and the contractor would have given him a certain timeline as to what the time period that he would take to complete that job. We try something different, Webbo, because as I said, the owner wanted to open his business by a particular time, which is leading up to Christmas. And we said to the builder, look, what would it cost to run one of these blocks? We got a price to run one block, Mr. Stanley and gentlemen. And a job that would have taken about 2, 3, 4 months was done in 3 weeks. It was done in 3 weeks. Without any compromising of the structure, without taking any shortcut. I watched those gentlemen work from 6 in the morning until 7 o'clock in the night. You know why? Because there was a fixed price to run
per block.
per block. It is something that I think that we need to get to. I know in some of the trades it is done to some extent. The electricians would tell you to put a switch it might cost X dollars. The tiler would tell you that it might to run a particular size of tile, this is the cost. So it is being practiced in some of the trades. I have tried to speak to a number of contractors and said to them, look, you have some very talented carpenters. You know the length of your rafters. What would it cost to install one 12-foot rafter or one 16-foot rafter? And there is that difficulty or that hesitation for them to give you a price to install one of those rafters. They would rather tell you, you know, the roof going to take a month. But I would say to you, if they were to give you a price to install one length of rafter, the price is not necessarily going to change. They're going to get it done quicker because they want to move on to another job. It is, I don't necessarily feel that we need to mandate that kind of method in construction. I'm a little hesitant to say that we must or we should or we need to, but I think that we can improve on the rate of construction without compromising the integrity of the structure. I think that is where we need to get at, because I have seen contractor A can take the same building and get it done in 4 months, and contractor B take the same building and spend a year on it, and it often baffles me. Is it that probably contractor A is more organized than contractor B? Is it that they apply themselves differently? There are a number of reasons why, but I think and I feel that the construction sector is an area where there needs to be some improvement. There needs to be some improvement, and I believe that it can be happening.
Let me get a break. This is Thought That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Naya Library, the Honorable Spencer Brand. Your phone calls when we come back on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. We'll be back after this.
All the power from the tower. This is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean. VON Radio from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Stanley's Real Estate announces a 102-acre lot for sale at Estates Bottom and Morton Hill Estates combined. The lot is located at St. George's Parish, west of Stockpen Estate and south of Saddle Hill. Call Mr. Edric Stanley for serious inquiries or more information at 869-665-5634 or 869-469-3868.
Always satisfying. VON Radio, the powerhouse.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with the Honorable Spencer Brand, Conrad Naya Library, Edric W. Stanley. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Gentlemen, if you, with your permission, I got a couple of things I'd like to mention. Number one, about a week or so ago, going on 2 weeks now, somebody, a good citizen, found an item and they brought it to the radio station asking if we can help. Now, I've been asking folks to help us without any great success as yet. The item, I think, this is just a guess based on what the item is, perhaps belongs to somebody who don't normally reside on the island. We're trying to see how we can track them down otherwise, but we haven't been successful as yet. So I'm saying it again, to spread the word that a good citizen found an item. It was between on the bypass road, somewhere around Franchot Manors building store, Zone 1 Auto, or something like that, and the Nevis Printery building. So on that stretch of road, that's where it was found. Now, the happening and good thing about it that I like is that a good citizen found it. And we're trying desperately, because I know I lost items before, and I would give anything to get it back, because sometimes it has other than monetary value, So, so I'm just mentioning it again. We have it. All they have to do is call 469-1616-1700. Describe the item, which would mean it's yours, and then you get it. And that's number one. Number two, we, for the most part, really do thought that get results. Remember, when I think we were here last, Edric, you said that you had a guinea tree?
That is correct.
And that you sold it? That's not correct?
Well,
Sold meaning the guineas?
Yeah.
The whole tree? Right. You remember I said I had two?
I told you about your two.
And what?
He hasn't gotten back from us to whether or not he's going to buy yours. But I already got him in the loop to buy mine.
Oh. You have him in the loop to buy yours, but you don't know about mine.
I told him about yours. And I showed him where he could make a substantial amount of money, because a lack of guinea pigs, $5 in Zinc, And
sometimes if people would just let me finish, we would save a lot of time and energy, because what I was going to say is you said you have one sold. I said I would have two. I would like them to be sold as well. I understand that you're trying, but what I wanted to tell you is to thanks very much, but I have them sold already.
Oh, good. All right, Webbo.
You see, that's what I'm saying. If people work with me, so.
But have you ever done this before?
No.
Good. But
that's what I'm saying. That's where it says sometimes we do thought that get results.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, I got to wait until the time comes. But we have some agreement already. Every now and then people bluff me, but so I got two. And then I told him there's more where that came from too, because I actually have another two more.
Good.
Right. So so I got those two trees sold, two guinea trees, because especially the folks in St. Kitts. So you all, when you come over for Culturama, there'll be guineas all over. So no shortage of that. Also, we really stimulated a good discussion. Everybody likes the discussion about the fruits and the culture and all that and stuff like that, right? So we appreciate, people telling us, people meet us and say, well, this other trees, that place, and so. My friend Mr. Cool told me where a lot of stuff that we said we couldn't find, where they are. But just like everything else, there's a passage in the scripture where it said that a sower was sowing seeds, and not all fell on good ground. So a fellow promised me he was going to bring me 2 shaddocks. And he even told me when he was going to bring them. Notice I'm talking past tense. So I'm still waiting for them. Because I'm told that Shaddock, Mr. Stanley, is in Brown Hill. You know that too?
Well,
You either knew it or you didn't know it, Mr. Stanley. Did you know Shaddock is currently in Brown Hill?
No.
Okay.
Let me make that statement.
Okay, so...
Well, I know when we were going to Brown Hill School, we will eat Shaddock and they came out of Brown Hill. But to tell you, if they are still in Brown Hill, I couldn't tell you at this juncture. They are.
Right, so that's what I was told, that Shaddock is in Brown Hill. So we will see whether or not the fella comes through or he's just bluffing. Okay, so having those two things done, the other thing I like to mention in the form of a question. Who gets good customer service here on the panel? Or who, in their view, where customer service in general is concerned, there's a lot to be left to be desired, as far as, generally speaking? Because I hear a lot of complaints about the lack of good customer service, right? But before we get into the discussion, I would like to hear from folks who are listening what they think, if they think that we can improve on our customer service, etc., etc. I'm sort of using a strategy which is working. I don't know if everybody wants to use a strategy, but I'm using a strategy which is working. And I'm trying to find in each organization, especially those that you have to frequent, there'll always be among the lot, no matter what they say about that business place or organization, there's got to be at least one or a few folks in there who gives great service. You agree, right, Stanley?
Quite so.
So I'm trying to find that person or persons. And I've always been the good news guy. So I want to mention, I don't know if I should do it, but I have a history of doing the things that I should not do. So you all remember First Caribbean Bank here on Nevis, and how it left us high and dry almost. Some of us didn't like how they leave, but we still work with them. So they're over in St. Kitts now, and so I find that I was over a period of time in this, because they're not an island, So there's a lady there by, I think her name is Kimala, Miss Farrell, and I had to deal with her a couple of times. And I've heard other persons on Nevis say the same thing. And boy, that lady is good with her customer service. And you can listen how she patiently deals with you and solve the problem. She is not performing. She's real good. Yeah, that's the real thing. I never met her. I only spoke with her as a customer on the phone. But I made sure that I remember her name, Miss Farrell. They're at First Caribbean Bank on St. Kitts. Now, also, in other areas and organizations, for instance, when Mr. Brand was here, remember we were talking about the water, Mr. Brand? And I said that one or two fellows in the water department, I try and get their numbers. So even when they're not on duty, you would call them, and because of the way they do the job and the care, they would always answer and get it done. So even if sometimes in an organization you don't get, so try and find somebody in there, because there's always somebody in the utilities. Get a lot of cursing. That's correct.
That's correct.
Yes, but in the billing section, the customer service area in Charlestown, again, I don't know if I should do it, because sometimes when you single out people, sometimes they get a backlash, right, Naya?
Yes.
From the other employees and so. But they have two ladies in Neville, like Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Edwards. Mark you, I'm not saying anything is wrong with anybody else. I'm just saying that these are some of the folks who, even if it's not my affairs, like somebody would call here, and instead of putting it on the radio, I would say, Mrs. Brown, somebody said that they had this particular issue, and say, okay, Mr. Herbert, give them this number and tell them to call me. I'm talking about things like that. And so that person perhaps gets sorted out. Mackie, you all don't, I'm just mentioning these two names, but I'm sure that everybody else in that department does the same thing. The point I'm making is that I'm just trying to solve an issue so that if people feel stressed and they can't get around because they keep going to the water department or electricity and so on and so forth, try and see if you can find somebody in there. Because I'm about solving, I hate to keep complaining. I want a thing done, results, right? And so there are other, in inland revenue, I find, I don't know about you, Mr. Brown, but I find, generally speaking, and Mr. Stanley, you're always in there where money is, correct?
All right. I pay my taxes.
Right. So I find down there and the treasury, I find it very helpful too, generally speaking. What do you think?
Quite so, Webbo.
Okay.
But it could be
better?
The people who know you and know the power you carry.
I don't think so, because, well, then maybe you're right, and so maybe that's why I get such bad treatment sometimes. You think that could be it?
Well, you want to put it, Webbo?
Well, if that's the point you're making, I concede.
At the same time, I get good service from those two departments that you just mentioned. Excellent service. They go beyond the call of duty.
So then it has nothing to do with me personally. You agree with that?
I'm saying to you, the power you carry and maybe the power I carry.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you understand?
Now you get good service in those areas?
Sometimes, because sometimes, you know, the inland revenue people, I like them.
Okay.
We argue sometimes, but I'm being a better citizen now, so we are getting along fine. Yeah.
Okay. So you think is he argues sometimes because he carries less power than you, then, Adrian?
Maybe.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
you know, wherever you go to these places and you wonder why, and you got to ask them. Sometimes the government policy is a little harsh, and you got to ask them. I mean, all this just for one day, you know. I mean, penalty and so forth. I mean, you're not being tough with the ladies or the gentlemen, but they're generally at the inland revenue. I like them all. They're really nice.
Mm.
They would meet me uptown and remind me about certain things, which I'm happy about. But we had some rough times there, but I think all is well now. We're getting along pretty fine.
Okay. Well, like I said, I hear people comment all the time.
Yes.
And you know what I find, and Naya keeps repeating it. People will come and they will tell you. And I keep wondering if we're not just a complaining society. Because when they get the opportunity to say, well, the service there is not good, and so we like it improved, they don't say it. And then you go and you grumble again. Right? So, my question is, whether or not it's just a figment of my imagination or my hearing, maybe I can't hear too well, and I'm just wondering, how are we doing with service? Are people satisfied when they go to business places or wherever and so on? Are we getting good service?
Webbo, the Nevis Labour Department held a career fair over the last 2 days. Started yesterday and concluded today. And one of the area was customer service. And that area, Webbo, was highlighted because based on the interaction and feedback from the Nevis Labour Department, the customer service on the island of Nevis is not where it should be. It can be a lot better. We would have solicited the advice and expert presentation from the customer rep from the Bank of Nevis, and he would have outlined 2 these young people, what are some of the areas and what are some of the tenets of good customer service? This is not, Webbo, in my mind, a pigment of anyone's imagination. The Labor Department have said to us that, look, there is a concern as it relates to customer service on the island of Nevis. And they have gone to this particular career fair 2023 and highlight some of the areas where there are concerns. They have expressed that for better customer service, that the various businesses and government departments, service providers, they really have to step up their game. And they have found, Webbo, that see this thing we call the cell phone? This piece of gadget here that we call a cell phone, it is creating some issues as it regards to the quality of customer service here on the island of Nevis. I can only speak about Nevis because that is what the Labor Department is saying to me as the Minister of Labor. They have said to me, listen, there is an area of concern on the island of Nevis with customer service. One of the distraction has been the cell phone. I am hoping, Webbo, that we are here tonight, and based on what would have happened yesterday at that career fair, that we can get the message out to our people that the level of service that we offer can make a world of difference to an individual. They may not necessarily get the answer that they want. They may not necessarily get the result that they were looking for. But I believe that the level of professionalism and the quality of the customer service can make a world of difference. And I think that is something that, as a developing island, as an island that is, in my mind, a service-oriented island, that we really have to take a good look at it. We really have to take a hard look at it and see how best we can improve it. Well, it's not a pigment of anyone's imagination. There is some concern.
It's real.
It appears to be real.
The evidence reveals that.
It is real. It is real.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Brand, as if you stayed for the discussion or anything, but did you get a sense, or did they indicate some of the reasons why? Is it cultural? Is it a matter of people are not satisfied in the jobs they pay? What did they?
Well, but I did say that one of the biggest culprit appeared to be the cell phone. People seems to be very much distracted in their work environment with the telephone. That was highlighted, and it appears to be creating some distraction. And the level of the high level of attention that one really should be giving their customer is oftentimes sadly distracted by the cell phone, and that is something that was highlighted. Attitude. It's
prioritizing your attitude.
And the desire to give of one's very best. I think someone highlighted that there is this kind of lackadaisical attitude and approach to work in general, and I think also that creates a kind of diminished quality of service.
But I got a question for you, but let me first take this. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air.
Good evening, Webbo.
Yes.
Evening. Just tuning in. I think I've heard Mr. Brand's voice and Mr. Stanley's voice. Good evening.
Good
to
evening.
the gentleman. This is a very interesting topic and a very timely topic that, in my estimation, should have happened a long, long time ago. As I listen to Mr. Brand, I am wondering, and he's right, the cell phone is a big issue, but what are the rules in the workplace? Aren't the employees supposed to put away their cell phones once their shift starts? Why do they have the cell phone on in the first place? Is the cell phone one of the instruments that they use for work? Who is supervising? The other thing is, what happens when a person is employed at a business place? Because it seems to me when an employee comes on board, in a lot of instances, they're just thrown in. They're not trained. They're not talked to about expectations. They're not talked to about how to handle. And they may be coming from an environment where they have no experience. So where are we starting? What do we do? It would seem to me that some of these things can be taught in the schools. Some of them can be taught in the home. I learned to answer a phone in my home. My parents taught me how to answer a phone and sound professional. I didn't learn that on the job. When I got to the job dictated to me what I should say, but not how to say it, because I already knew how to say it. And those are some of the things that we have to pay close attention to. Our children, the parents in the home, the schools, the teachers, the environment from which they're coming from. I had an experience recently where I called a workplace. I won't name any names. And I asked to speak to someone, and they were not there. I was told they were not there. I said, okay, may I leave a message? And I said my name, and the person said, okay. And I said, excuse me, you didn't allow me to give you my number. How would they know what number to call me back at? Oh yeah, okay. You know, in all fairness to that person, was that person taught how to answer a phone, how to handle a call, how to manage a call? Because a lot of the employees, I believe, are taken on in a business place, in an office, and they're thrown out there, and they're not being given the training that they need to initiate. And so it just gets, they pick up what they see around them, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And that's a big part of the problem.
Caller, what if you were in terms of some of the questions you're asking, what if you were told, for instance, that when you ask what are told of these things, what if the answer is yes?
Then the supervisor or manager of that office or business space, they're not doing their job. Because if they can tell me that the employee was told, was trained, was initiated into how to present themselves in a workplace, then something is very wrong if this is what you're getting. That's why let me go back to the cell phone. When you go on the job, did you tell the employee that once they come inside the office or on the workplace, the cell phone needs to be turned off and put away? Because if you don't, they're going to have it on their desk.
So, well, let me ask you this. You being an employer or farmer, whatever, an employer as well, would you have given those instructions to your employees?
Absolutely.
And what has been your experience? They do it?
They do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you tell people up front what your expectations are, it gives them the opportunity to make a choice. Either they want to work with you or they don't. They may not like you, but those are your standards.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to tell. You can't assume that people know.
Mm-hmm.
You have to tell them.
And then if they know and having taught or trained them and they do not execute the duties as they should, then it is your time to act. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Brand, how does that sound to you?
I think it's a good suggestion, good advice. Webbo,
But that's almost elementary,
Yeah.
isn't it? So then why do we have, if that's elementary, because nobody does more training than government, you'll agree with that?
they keep training and training.
Okay, and a lot of the bigger businesses on the island do a lot of training. You agree with that?
That's right.
Okay, so caller, you included in terms of this question. So why do why are we at a stage where we're complaining that generally speaking we don't get good service?
Webbo, I'm not sure. Let me share with you an experience I had when I first came back to this island after being away for many, many years. I went to a business place and I was approached as to what is it that I wanted from the menu. It was a restaurant. And they told me, and I said, okay, do you have any specials? Oh, in there on the board. I was sitting at a table outside. So I said to the person, so what would you like me to do? Get up and go in and look on the board? And the answer was yes. I came from a customer service background. I had much training in customer service. And I found it to be despicable. I'll tell you why. Because I immediately thought we are a tourism
Service oriented
our
island.
service industry.
Right.
We live, eat, breathe, sleep tourism. The Honorable Malcolm Gishard and I got along very well, and we would have many conversations. And I would say to him, in conversation, are we really, Malcolm? Are we really? And he said, he would laugh and he said, yeah, he's asking me that question. I said, because we don't behave like we are. We can't give this kind of service and call ourselves a service industry island. Our foundation is built on customer service in what we do, in just about everything we do. And I'll tell you the other thing that I've noticed. When you go to certain workplaces, people behave one way. And when you see them in another workplace, in a different environment, they're a completely different person. We need to go back to the basics. We need to go back to school.
It can be in those instances that those persons were not trained.
That's my point.
Okay, well, let me ask this question. You think because the service or the quality of service could be subjective, you think perhaps our expectation is too great?
Our expectation can never be too great when this is what we have to offer. This is all we have to offer.
Do you not think that the persons who are given the service, in their own view and evaluation, think that they might be doing a very good job?
You know what? In all fairness to them, maybe they do, because nobody ever taught them. Nobody ever taught them. What happens to the initiation process in a workplace? I've always questioned that, because every place that I've ever worked, I had to undergo a 1 week or 2 week training process on the company, what it stands for, what you're expected to do, what's the expectation of the employee versus the expectation of the employer.
Caller, I don't know. What I can say is that I talked to a few managers of the larger organizations or businesses, and I know they have training programs, and they're complaining the same way. So I really don't know.
Well, I think one of the things that I feel very strongly about, we need to start it in the primary school, high school level before our young people even get out of school, so they know what is expected of them on the workplace.
When you say we need to start it there, you mean teach it as a subject, or because there are certain things that are just common courtesy.
Well, that's true. That's absolutely true. Unfortunately, it's not so common as you think. But
Okay,
it's good.
so who must teach that? Who must teach that?
I think it could be taught in the school system. There could be a customer service, a teacher who specializes in customer service.
Well, let me ask you this. You don't think if, as I mentioned, common courtesies, and if you have had those, you don't need a teacher to teach you those, do you?
Quite.
Because if you have the basic fundamental of being remember you used to use your manageable and courteous and stuff like that, you hardly need to be taught things in school or informal. You know what I'm saying?
It's unfortunate, but it needs to be taught, Webbo. It's unfortunate. I hear you, but it needs to be taught.
Right,
And how do we get around that? As a parent, I taught my child certain things at home, that he's expected to do certain things and behave a certain way, carry himself a certain way. Oh, good morning, simple things like good morning, good afternoon, how you greet people, how you acknowledge that somebody is there. If you're waiting on a table over here and there are people sitting over there at another table and they've been ignored for the last half hour because, quite frankly, you've been busy, but at least you take a moment and you acknowledge and say, I'll be right with you. That makes a hell of a difference.
Yeah, but you made a point. You made a point earlier, caller, by giving an example, and you said that some people perform very well in one area, but the same person, maybe the same day, perform the complete opposite in another area. But that suggests it isn't that they do not know. So don't we have another issue?
Well,
Attitude.
Okay. All right, caller. All right. Thank you.
very good discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. Thank you for holding. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You're on the air. Could you go ahead?
Hi, good evening, Webbo.
Good evening.
Yes,
You have, caller, you have to listen to the phone, not to the radio, because
okay,
that's
sorry.
yes.
Sorry. Okay. I am here listening to the conversation, and I thought I would mention something which I experienced a few days ago, and I mention it only because I think it is significant and important. I was being served at the desk of a statutory corporation. As a matter of fact, never paying my bill. And when I had finished, the young lady said to me, "Okay, darling." And I was a bit, well, not shocked because I'd heard it before, but I thought I should address it. So I said to her, you shouldn't be calling me darling in a workplace. The thing that struck me was that she didn't seem to understand. So although I know there's training, I do question the quality of the training because she didn't seem to understand. Because when I said to her, I hope you're not offended, but it's not something you should do, and maybe you should spread the word among the other staff that they shouldn't be calling people darling. But she resisted and she said, well, you do it when you hear it. I said, but you should do it as well. And she said, well, I don't see anything wrong with it. So I felt so strongly about it, I did call the relevant government department to raise it, because I think it's something that should be addressed. I hear it a lot in Nevis, workers calling people sweetheart, darling, I think it is inappropriate and it is something that should be stopped.
Caller, I could ask you a question.
Sure.
You think that it is a change in times in terms of what is accepted as normal?
Yes, I agree 100%. And the reason for that, because the young lady I dealt with, who appeared to be in her 20s, genuinely didn't see anything wrong with saying, okay, darling. She genuinely didn't understand, which means she's a product of the environment, of the new cultural habits, etc., that she thought it was okay to refer to a customer as darling.
Right, so maybe it is the new normal, which one may argue maybe we and you may need to get accustomed to.
No, it's the new normal, but it's not the right normal. It is totally inappropriate in a business environment to refer to a customer as sweetheart and darling. For lots of reasons, which I'm sure people understand. Those are terms of endearment, terms of love, terms of whatever else you want to say. They are not appropriate for business place.
Let me ask you this. Do you not hear our officials and authorities referring and selling us as a people and a nation as sexy this and sexy that? What is your view of that then?
When you say our leaders, I can't speak to that really.
No, what I'm saying is, well, you say you haven't heard it, but let me ask you hypothetically.
Yes,
Walk with me. So if you were to learn that our officials and representatives and authorities are selling us as sexy and those sort of descriptions, what would you say? Think of that.
Well, as I said, without referring to any specific thing which I have heard, I would say that we have to be, those in authority have to be careful and cautious about the way they speak and the way they sell ideas, because the younger people might be taking hints from it and acting accordingly. So we have to be careful the way we speak. But
okay,
like I said, it is inappropriate, but it's very common in Nevis. I lived in St. Kitts. I've heard it in St. Kitts, but to be honest, it's not. It seems to be more common in Nevis. I hear it at Rams, for example. People tell me, okay, sweetheart. It sounds nice, but in our workplace, it's not.
Okay, all right, interesting.
Could I mention one other thing?
Yes.
This is a pet subject of mine.
Yes.
Which, and this is not for government departments only. Maybe it's very much a Nevis habit. That you go to a place, let's say you go to a business place and you ask something and they say, oh, we are closing. You have to, and this is what I'm focusing on. They say, you have to come back tomorrow. Have to. And I'm just saying to myself, but I don't have to. There are other places in town. I can go there and get it. So people have this habit of telling you have to, without recognizing that the choice of language is inappropriate and wrong. So I'm suggesting to the listeners, as Nevisians, let us drop this talk about, in a business environment, that you have to. Because the customer, in a way, is always right, and he doesn't have to.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks much.
Okay, right, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening, Webber, and your guests.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's quite interesting, the discussion you are having. And there are certain aspects to it, you know. One is cultural to it. We may not, don't want to believe it. But often the persons you interact with, they assess you as to your social standing in the community. The same person who may be hostile to you may be very respectful to the person behind you if they feel that the person is in a higher bracket than you are. The very same person. I don't know if you're aware of it. Sometimes they're very hostile and crude and rough to what we call poor people. The worse if you're from the area where they are from. Because if they have no respect for you outside of their job, they're not going to have it on the job.
But caller, that's the thing though. Wasn't there a time when it used to be that you can separate both? In other words, you can have respect for a person on the job, or even at church, when sometimes when you go to church, you don't do or say certain things in the church. But outside the church, you can do or say things. Wasn't there a time when it used to be that way?
Yes, but what has happened, you see, when there's a breakdown in society, there's no getting around it. I mean, I am 75 years old, so I know. I mean, sometimes you feel sorry for the person.
But
in a certain way.
But you would agree, though, you feeling sorry for the person because based on what you know to be the norm or have been trained, but they may not know what you know or been trained that way.
That's
so what
I mean. So sometimes rather than reacting like them, you know, because sometimes, and the person talk about the darling and honey, well, I taught for years, and I used to honey and darling the children because they don't eat anywhere else. You know, but sometimes I work in offices, right? And sometimes when the workers come in, they come from high school, some from CFBC and all, and they can't even answer a phone, or the conversation, or the reaction. You have to call them by themselves, say, you know, honey, that's not the way we do it here, you know.
So the question would be, as a previous caller had indicated, in the first instance, when they came here, did you teach them?
Right. Because in the government services, they're trained after they reach in.
I see.
They say, go down by the so-and-so office. Tell so-and-so, you know.
But then after that, having been trained, then you should get results, right?
Service, but often, Mr. Brandway, I think if you ask the question, there's something called job dissatisfaction, which is played out on the customers. They vent their frustration, because sometimes they can't vent it on the boss, eh? So they're frustrated for whatever reason, personal or on the job. And the workers and the customers get it.
Okay, so caller, let me ask you this then, finally. What is your general view of customer service in our islands?
Well, let me go back to my first statement. It varies according to who it is dished out to.
Okay.
It's not a general thing, because otherwise we'll be fooling ourselves.
Okay.
Two of us can go into the same place. Let us say, well, I was a teacher. Oh, teacher, you know, come and I was on the radio. You know that kind of way.
Okay, so I got you. It depends on who you are.
On who you are.
Okay. All right, thank you. I gotta go to a next caller. Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, good evening, you're on the air.
Hi, good evening, Webbo. You asked a very interesting question in regards to customer service. If it is not common that people should know some of these things. But I think the answer is no, because there are certain aspects of customer service that should be taught. For example, like eye contact. That don't come natural. You know, some people are very shy, but they have to understand if they're in a workplace, you know what I mean, eye contact, you know, is important. And then another aspect is like to get up when a customer approaches. Some persons may not know that. That won't come common. So yes, so customer service still has to be taught. And then they had actually to say thank you after you would have done a transaction. Thanks for doing business with us. That wouldn't come natural, so of course, you know, that has to be taught. And even if we go to the phone, you really answer the phone with a smile. That wouldn't come natural. That has to be taught. Answer the phone with a smile simply means you answer the phone as if you really want to hear what the person at the other end is saying and make them want to talk to you. So, you know, these are some interesting customer service aspects that has to be taught because they don't come natural. Even someone who is a genius, going up they may not know about these things, you know. So they has to be taught. And there is one more I want to touch on, efficiency. This is one of the biggest problems we have in these smaller islands. For example, whenever you go to a supermarket and you hear all the clutter, I might be cashing, and then my friends are in the line, and other customers are in the line, one of my friends. And I will just chuck up conversation with those persons in the line who are my friends, and then not knowing that there are some total distraction while other customers are within the line. So this also has to be taught, that you have to maintain professionalism. If your mother or your father is in the line, technically they're not your mother or your father, they are a customer. And you don't try to hold up conversation, with them as to keep you back. Because there's somebody in the line. So yes, there are many aspects of customer service that need to be taught. They don't come natural. I don't know if you want to engage me with any question before I go.
Yeah, I hear you. It's pretty interesting. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes. Who wants to get in?
I think the big thing is attitude or the lack thereof. And there are times the attitude is just natural. You are naturally an amiable person, and as a result, even you're answering the telephone, even though the person is not in front of you, you would have an amiable attitude, and it just radiates simply because you are a naturally friendly person. If you're a hostile person, it's going to come to the fore, no matter where you are, no matter who you're talking to.
It should not, though.
It shouldn't, unless you're trained and you've been talked to as a result of these attitudes, good attitudes, bad attitudes. You will not be able to amplify them or demonstrate them when you're supposed to be able to demonstrate a positive, amiable, friendly attitude. Like I said, if you're a hostile person, hostility would be at the forefront of your mind, and as a consequence, it comes to the fore.
Yeah, but also, Webbo, I think we operate in a competitive world, and a competitive marketplace. You're providing a service, you're in a marketplace, whether it's simply working at a restaurant or for government and so forth. You can be replaced. And you must realize that you are the representative of whether the government in that small circumstance, or you represent the restaurant, because you are the contact point with the customer. And I think not realizing that you are selling yourself and selling the business, that's where a lot of problems come in. I mean, a waitress can be replaced. Sometimes it's the bosses that allow these things to fester simply because they give that impression to the workers that they're indispensable. I think people have to realize that they're in a marketplace. They're selling themselves, they're selling the business that they represent, and therefore they got to be on their best behavior. Sometimes training is necessary to achieve this. Sometimes people, by their own simple intuition, would realize that, if I am not doing this in the proper way, I can lose my job, and I am not representing the institution, the business that I am, fronting properly. So it comes with, and again, attitude and so forth. But fundamental to me is the fact that, one, you are the representative of the business. You are representing, at times, government policy in the inland revenue. You are representing what the business.
Okay, let me just take this now. I'll come back to you. Thank you for holding. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening, Webbo. I'm so glad that previous caller brought up the casual talk, because I find that even more annoying than the person on the phone. Because one, it says, one, you're ignoring me as a customer, and two, you're not showing respect for my time. So, yeah, we have a long way to go in terms of improvement in customer service. And the last thing I'd like to say is that you were asking about how do we fix this. The persons in charge, are the persons who can fix it. People must be accountable for their behavior, and leadership is not for cowards. You have a good night.
Okay, thank you very much. Naya.
Yes, Webbo, it's about representing yourself and representing the company or business you work for, and you want to do it in a proper way, otherwise you can be replaced. Without that consequence, I suppose we will just be flat-footed on this matter. Yes, I think in a general sense we have to do much better on personal service provided. It's not just over the counter, but
here's the thing I want to really know, Naya and Mr. Brand and Mr. Stanley. Do you think that the people who we're saying we're not getting good service from, do you not think that they think they are providing good service?
They know when they're not providing good service, Webbo. Don't kid yourself. A hostile person will always bring out that attitude of hostility.
Good evening, thank you for holding.
Hello?
Good evening, you're on the air.
Hi, maybe just one more quick thing I want to touch on in regards to customer service. One of the things that we really need to work on in our Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis is whenever we give the service person whether our credit card or cash in their hand, instead of giving it back to us in our hand, they place it on the counter. I remember one time in a particular supermarket, my credit card actually ended up in my shopping bag, because the cashier talking to another person, not looking at me, and it's a good thing I was looking, the credit card ended up in my shopping bag. So yes, they should also, the same way the customer give you their cash or their card in your hand, you give it back to them in their hand and don't put it on the counter. That's disrespectful. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Brand, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, well, I think someone said earlier that a person can perform and does perform a particular way in one establishment, and the same person perform in a kind of different way at a different
Okay, I'll let you expand on it, but let me accommodate this caller. Thank you for holding. Go ahead, please.
Yes, this is my last thing. I have been thinking, I recall when they were building the Warner Park, the new cricket stadium, each worker was given a booklet. It's construction, but I'm getting to the point. So they know what they could and could not do on the site, how they were to dress, and the penalties. If you walk on the ladder or whatever, you can be dismissed. So sometimes, and the labor law says so, workers should be given a booklet or some form of information from the day they step into the enterprise, whether government or whatever. So they would know what you expect of them. Take some of the business in town. Once they come to that door, the phone goes into the locker. There's no question of somebody on the phone, because they have to put away the phone. So sometimes, because we don't tell them the limit or what is expected of them, come to cash or cash. That's it.
Okay, all right.
So maybe Mr. Brand or whoever, we could think about it.
Okay.
Give them the information. This is what is expected of you in this enterprise, in this department. All right then.
Okay, Mr. Brand.
Yeah, Webbo, and thanks for the caller for her input. Webbo, I was saying that it was highlighted earlier where an individual can perform a particular way in one establishment, and the same individual perform totally different in a different environment at a different time. I believe, Webbo, that we can do better, and we have seen situations where for some strange reason persons perform a particular way in a particular establishment, and when they make the transition from 5 to 10 is a totally different level of performance. I think, Webbo, that and someone spoke about that we are a service providing society, established island, so to speak. And Mr. Stanley, I think, was the one who also highlighted about the attitude. I believe that attitude has a lot to play with the level of service that we can offer. And I believe that if we can change that attitude, improve on that attitude, make our people realize that their attitude can have a big role to play in how they deliver the quality of service to our people, then I believe we can see much improvement. But there is some work that needs to be done, I think, on all fronts, both government, private sector, individuals as well. What is expected of persons coming into the workforce, even those who are and have been working for years. There are still some areas that we need to improve on if we really want to see much improve in our customer service level.
There is a saying that your attitude determines your altitude.
That's right.
And it is a true saying. And you'll be surprised, those people with bad attitudes, they are flying at the altitude is a aviation terminology. They're flying at a very low altitude, and consequently
is an aviation terminology.
That is correct.
How do you know about aviation terminologies?
I flew.
You make Edric laugh. I mean, you make Naya laugh.
No,
How many hours, yeah?
Maybe about 18.
Oh, 18 hours.
Yeah, 18 flying hours.
I thought you were going to say 1800.
No.
So you're a pilot too?
I'm going to bring you my pilot license one of these days. Where I found it. All right.
This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Talk and get results. You all have a wonderful evening.